There are extinct animals we could bring back right now. The DNA exists, the technology works, and the people who could do it are choosing not to. One of them had its entire genome sequenced over a decade ago. That work won a Nobel Prize in 2022. Another one's remains are sitting in museum drawers right now, and the people with authority over those remains have been telling scientists to stop. And one of them is locked in 2 freezers on opposite sides of the planet, under an argument that's been running for 40 years. So I want to know one thing. Which one is the one nobody will touch? We're counting down 9 of them, and we're not ranking them by how close they are to coming back. We're ranking them by how hard the no is. Number 9 is nature saying no. Number 1 is us saying no, in writing, with a lock on it. And number 1 isn't an animal. Number 9, Tyrannosaurus rex. We're starting here because everybody asks about it, and everybody's wrong about it. DNA is not a rock. It's a molecule, and it falls apart on a schedule. One study on preserved bird bones put the half-life at around 500 years. Every 5 centuries, half of what's left breaks down again, then half of that, forever. The oldest genetic material anyone has recovered came out of mammoth teeth frozen in Siberian permafrost, and that was around 1 million years old. The T-Rex has been dead for 66 million. So nobody refused the T-Rex. There was never a meeting. There was never a phone call. There is simply nothing left to work with, and there hasn't been since roughly the invention of grass. Weakest no on the list. Number 8, Megalodon. This one has the same problem, except worse, which I didn't think was possible. Sharks don't have skeletons. They have cartilage, and cartilage doesn't fossilize the way bone does. What we mostly have of the Megalodon is teeth, enormous ones. Genuinely one of the coolest objects you can hold. Genetically, useless. You cannot clone a tooth. I looked into it. I looked into it more than I'd like to admit. Number 7, Smilodon. Here's where it stops being about the DNA, because with the saber-toothed cat, we actually have it. Researchers sequenced the genome of Smilodon populator from a specimen roughly 13,000 years old. The material problem is solved. Everything after the material is the problem. Its lineage split from every cat alive today more than 20 million years ago. That is not a cousin. That's barely the same family reunion. There is no living animal close enough to carry the pregnancy, and no obvious way to build one that could. And say you solved it anyway. What's the plan? You've now got a 400-pound ambush predator that evolved to hunt animals which are also extinct. So where does it live? Whose farmland is it next to? Who's the first person to find out the answer? Nobody refused the saber-tooth. They did the math and quietly stopped bringing it up in meetings. Number 6, the dodo. This is the most requested extinct animal on Earth. Funded project, named team, public timeline, and it has been a few years away for a very long time now. Here's why. Almost everything you've heard about cloning was developed on mammals. Take an egg cell, swap the nucleus, implant it in a surrogate. That entire toolkit assumes a uterus. Birds don't have one of those. A bird embryo develops inside a sealed shell, on the outside of the mother. There's no point where you can reach in and put something there. So the approach has to be completely different. You're editing cells early in a living bird's development and hoping its descendants carry what you want. Slower, less proven, and it means the bird you're trying to make is at minimum a generation removed from the bird you're editing. Which brings us to the second problem. This is the Nicobar pigeon, closest living relative to the dodo. It weighs about 1.5 pounds. The dodo weighed somewhere in the range of 30 to 40 pounds. So even in the perfect scenario, every edit works, every cell behaves, the final step of the plan is asking a pigeon to lay an egg roughly the size of its entire body. Not a refusal, just harder than the headlines. Every year, for years. Number 5, the passenger pigeon. This is the saddest one on this list, and I've thought about it more than any of the others. The passenger pigeon may have been the most numerous bird on the planet. Population estimates run into the billions. Flocks were described as blacking out the sun, not for minutes, for hours. The last one died in a zoo in 1914. Her name was Martha. Genetically, this is a decent candidate. We have specimens. There's an active project. The band-tailed pigeon is a workable relative, and it's the right size. The reason it hasn't happened isn't in the lab. The passenger pigeon didn't just happen to live in enormous flocks. It appears to have required them. The theory is that overwhelming numbers were the entire survival strategy. So many birds nesting simultaneously that predators physically could not eat them fast enough to matter. The flock wasn't a behavior. The flock was the defense mechanism, which means you can build the bird and still not have the species. Hatch 100 passenger pigeons and you haven't recreated anything. You've made 100 birds running instincts calibrated for a world of billions, released into a continent that no longer has the forests those billions fed on. Most get eaten. The rest don't breed. So the honest version of this project isn't bring back the passenger pigeon. It's bring back the passenger pigeon, then somehow produce several million more, then find them a forest that doesn't exist anymore. Number 4. Stellar's sea cow. This one went extinct faster than almost anything in recorded history, and it's the last entry where the obstacle is purely physical. A naturalist described it in 1741. It was gone by 1768, 27 years from, "We found this," to, "There aren't any." It was enormous, up to around 30 feet, potentially several tons. It ate kelp. It lived in cold northern water. It had no fear of people whatsoever, which turned out to be the whole story. We have its genome. That part's fine. Its closest living relative is the dugong, which is about 10 feet long and weighs a few hundred pounds. So the surrogate math here isn't difficult. It's comedic. You are asking an animal to give birth to something that outweighs it by an order of magnitude. And even if you solved that, the kelp forests it depended on across the North Pacific have declined enormously. You'd be building a 10,000-pound grazer and releasing it into a pantry that's already been emptied. Last one where the answer is, we physically can't. Everything above this, we can. Number 3. The moa. This is the first genuine refusal on this list, and it has nothing to do with genetics. The South Island giant moa stood around 12 feet tall. It disappeared within a couple of centuries of humans reaching New Zealand. And unlike most of this list, the preservation is genuinely good. The DNA is in workable shape. There's a funded project, there's serious money behind it, and there's a fight about it that most coverage walked straight past. Moa remains aren't only scientific specimens. In New Zealand, they sit inside a framework of Maori cultural authority, questions about who holds guardianship over ancestral material, and who has standing to consent to what's done with it. The project has an IWI research partner. It also drew immediate public criticism from other Maori voices and from New Zealand scientists, arguing the consultation didn't reach everyone it needed to. And I want to be careful here, because this is where a video like this usually flattens something complicated into a headline. There's no single Maori position on this, same as there's no single position on anything among millions of people. But it's the first entry where the obstacle isn't the DNA, isn't the surrogate, isn't the money. It's people with a legitimate claim saying, not without us. That's a kind of no, that no amount of gene editing gets you around. Number 2. The Neanderthal. This is the one everybody circles eventually, and it's the one where the honest answer is, we probably could. The Neanderthal genome was sequenced, not partially, the full thing, to high quality, over years of work. The scientist who led it won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2022 for exactly that. And the surrogate problem that killed every other entry on this list doesn't exist here. Neanderthals and modern humans were close enough to interbreed. Most people alive outside of Africa are carrying a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA right now, in your body, today. So the two things that stopped everything below this, no genome, no compatible surrogate, are both already solved. Years ago, a prominent geneticist was asked in an interview what it would technically take. He described the hypothetical. The reaction was instant and global, and a huge amount of it misreported him as announcing a plan. He spent a long time afterward clarifying that he wasn't. But the reaction told you everything, because the objection here isn't scientific. It's this: you would be creating a person, not a specimen, not a conservation project. A conscious being who cannot consent to existing, who has no family, no culture, no community of anyone remotely like them, because there aren't any, who exists specifically as the result of an experiment, and who would know it? Every single one of them would be the only one. There's no ethics board on the planet that approves that, not because the science might fail, because the science working is the problem. Somebody could, nobody will. Number 1, smallpox. Which brings us to the last one, and I told you at the start, it isn't an animal. Smallpox killed an estimated 300 million people in the 20th century alone. In 1980, the World Health Organization declared it eradicated, the only human disease we have ever completely wiped out. It's arguably the single greatest thing our species has ever done, and we didn't destroy it. 2 official stocks still exist, one in the United States, one in Russia, locked, monitored, and the subject of an argument at the World Health Assembly that has been running unresolved for 4 decades. Destroy them or keep them for research? The decision keeps getting deferred, and here's why it's at the top. Everything else on this list is a refusal by scientists, or by an ethics board, or by a community. This is the only one where we built an institution to say no. The mammoth has a target birth year. The Neanderthal has an ethics wall. Smallpox has a lock, 2 governments, and a 40-year argument about whether the key should exist at all. That's it for our video today. Like and subscribe.